Number 10. Chaos at Church. On June 16, 2022, a man fatally shot and killed 3 people at a church in Alabama with no real motive behind this act of violence. 71-year-old Robert Findlay Smith was at the Boomers potluck dinner at the St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Vestavia Hills. About 25 people, including Smith, were present in the parish hall. A long-standing church member kindly invited Smith to join a table, but he declined the offer and remained seated alone. Suddenly, Smith pulled out a handgun and fired at 3 people. At this point, another church member, Jim Musgrove, bravely intervened, striking Smith with a chair and disarming him. 84-year-old Walter Rainey from Irondale, 75-year-old Sarah Yeager from Pelham, and 84-year-old Jane Pounds from Hoover were fatally shot in the process. Tragically, Walter died at the scene, while Sarah and Jane were rushed to the UAB hospital, where they later succumbed to their injuries. The motive behind Smith's violent outburst remains unclear, as neither Emery Anthony, Smith's attorney, nor the prosecutor's office was able to provide a definitive answer. But it was evident that Smith felt remorse for his actions. District Attorney Danny Carr expressed that typically a case of this nature would be tried before a jury with the intention of seeking the death penalty. But after extensive discussion, contemplation and prayer, the families of the victims unanimously expressed their preference for a guilty plea to capital murder, ensuring a life sentence without the possibility of parole. He emphasized that as a result of this plea, there will be no appeal, ensuring that Smith will spend the rest of his life in prison. The guilty plea took place before Jefferson County Circuit Judge Candace Pickett, who handed Smith his sentence of life behind bars. Number 9. A mysterious suspect. On May 30th, 2005, a young woman vanished from the face of the earth. Natalie Holloway was just 18 years old when she disappeared in Aruba. She had been on a class trip with fellow high school seniors from Mountain Brook, Alabama, and arrived in Aruba on May 26, 2005. The FBI's investigation revealed that Natalie and some friends had visited a nightclub called Carlos and Charlie's on the night of May 29th. After the club closed, she remained in the area as she was seen bar hopping with her group. The last known sighting of Natalie occurred around 1:30 a.m. on May 30th, when witnesses saw her getting into a silver Honda with several individuals, including now 35-year-old Joran van der Sloot. Tragically, Natalie never returned to her room, and to this day, no one knows where she went. And in January 2012, a judge declared her legally dead. Van der Sloot, who's suspected of being involved in Natalie's disappearance in 2005, is being extradited from Peru to the United States to face wire fraud charges. Peru's Minister of Justice made the announcement on May 10, 2023, marking a significant development in the long-standing case. Van der Sloot has been imprisoned in Peru for more than a decade, after being arrested in 2010 for the murder of 21-year-old Stephanie Flores, whom he admitted to beating and strangling to death. As a result, he was sentenced to 28 years in a Peruvian prison. Interestingly, Flores was killed exactly 5 years after Natalie vanished, adding an interesting connection between the two cases. In June 2012, 5 months after his conviction for Flores' murder, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Alabama charged Van der Sloot, a Dutch international, with wire fraud and extortion. The charges stemmed from allegations that he extorted hundreds of thousands of dollars from Natalie's mother, Beth Holloway, by falsely promising to provide information about Natalie's disappearance and the location of her body. He used deceitful tactics to convince Beth to make wire transfers of money. But despite his obvious involvement in these crimes, Van der Sloot's attorney has stated that they plan to appeal the extradition. And in January 2023, he got an additional 18 years in prison for trafficking cocaine. While the investigation into Natalie Holloway's case is ongoing, Van der Sloot will be held behind bars until justice is served. Number 8. A false allegation. On January 23, 2018, 2 men and their dogs were brutally murdered by a man who suspected his girlfriend of cheating on him. The bodies of 59-year-old Joey Walker and 49-year-old Johnny Wissenant along with their 2 dogs, were discovered in an apartment near 3rd Street Southwest. According to reports, Walker and Wissenant were subjected to a vicious attack involving beatings and stabbings. The gruesome crime came to light when a family member discovered their bodies and immediately alerted the landlord. Concerned, the landlord promptly visited the apartment and noticed bloodstains seeping out from under the door. Investigators swiftly identified Joseph Brown, an acquaintance of the victims, as the primary suspect in the case. However, the investigation took a dark turn when details emerged of an incident preceding the victims' death. Just a couple of days before the bodies were found, Brown's girlfriend informed the police that he had assaulted her out of suspicion of cheating. In a desperate attempt to protect herself from further harm, she lied and falsely accused Wissenant of assaulting her, fearing that Brown might hurt or even kill her if she told him the truth. Brown, driven by rage and seeking retribution, accompanied his girlfriend to Walker and Wissenant's apartment to confront Wissenant about the false allegation against him. But upon their arrival, the woman managed to escape and urgently called for assistance. A few days later, in a disheveled state and under the influence of drugs, Brown showed up at a drug treatment facility wearing almost nothing but his birthday suit. Because of that, he was arrested for public intoxication. During this time, investigators discovered that Brown's vehicle was located behind the apartment where the victims were found, leading to further suspicion. When questioned by authorities, Brown admitted to visiting the apartment with the intention of confronting Wissenant. However, on January 23, 2018, he returned to the scene with a knife and a tire thumper. He then carried out the murders of both men. Brown revealed that he also killed the dogs, fearing that their barking might attract attention. After he was done, he tried to clean the apartment and then moved the victims' bodies into a bedroom, concealing them under clothes and various items. Following his arrest, Brown faced multiple charges, including capital murder, aggravated cruelty to animals, and first-degree burglary. He's since been held in the Etowah County Jail, awaiting his fate. Recent developments indicate that Brown entered a guilty plea for all charges leveled against him, and as a result, he's been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murders. Brown also received consecutive sentences of 99 years for the animal cruelty charges and a life sentence for the first-degree burglary charge. Number 7. A devastating end. On January 15, 2023, at around 1:45 a.m., a young Birmingham woman was brutally shot to death. That same day, a man approached a University of Alabama police officer. Distraught, he informed the cop that 23-year-old Jamir Harris, who was a passenger in his car, had been fatally shot. He then revealed that he had retaliated by returning fire, striking one of the suspects involved. Responding swiftly to the call, both the Tuscaloosa Police and County Sheriff's Office Violent Crimes Unit arrived at the scene to provide support and aid in the investigation. The driver, whose identity hasn't been revealed, informed the police that the shooting took place near University Boulevard on Grace Street. Following this lead, the authorities quickly identified 2 suspects in connection with the crime. They arrested 21-year-old Darius Miles and 20-year-old Michael Davis. Miles was a member of the University of Alabama's basketball team, but the school released a statement confirming his dismissal from the squad following his arrest. This development comes at a time when the Crimson Tide basketball team holds an impressive ranking of number 4 in the country. Captain Jack Kennedy from the Violent Crimes Unit provided some insight into the investigation. He revealed that investigators believe Miles, Davis, Harris, and the driver had some form of encounter or altercation while out and about, which tragically escalated and resulted in the fatal shooting of Jamir Harris. Both suspects were charged with capital murder, so they were booked into the Tuscaloosa County Jail, where they remain without bond. What do you think their sentence will be? Tell us in the comments below, and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 6. Ex-girlfriend kidnapped. In March 2022, a man kidnapped and took his ex-girlfriend across state lines, only for her to wind up dead days later. On March 27th, 37-year-old Casey Carley and 34-year-old Marcus Spanavello who were no longer together, had arranged to meet for a custody exchange near Joanna's Pagodas restaurant, which is located in Santa Rosa County, California. Carly was meeting Spanavello for the sole purpose of picking up their daughter after a visit with her father. The following day, Carly's dad reported her missing to the Santa Rosa Sheriff's authorities. On March 29th, her vehicle was discovered in the parking lot behind the restaurant where the meeting for the child exchange had taken place. Carly's purse and all of its contents were found inside the vehicle. Tragically, Carly's body was discovered on April 3rd in a shallow grave within a barn located on Highway 11 in Springville. This vacant property was one of 2 addresses associated with Spanavello in Springville, according to the authorities. Despite conducting a thorough autopsy, the final report failed to provide definitive answers regarding the cause and manner of Carly's death, leaving those details undetermined. It's worth noting that Spanavello had been living and working in Springville for several months leading up to Carly's disappearance, indicating a connection to the area where the body was ultimately discovered. Marcus Spanavello has since been prosecuted by a federal grand jury in Birmingham on a charge of kidnapping that led to the death of his ex-girlfriend. The indictment, consisting of a single count, alleges that Spanavello kidnapped Carly before killing her. Spanavello knowingly and unlawfully seized, confined, and transported Carly across state lines from Florida to Alabama, using various means of interstate and foreign commerce, including a cell phone and a GMC motor vehicle. The indictment states that these actions were committed for Spanavello's own benefit and purpose, and resulted in Carly's tragic death. On April 6, 2023, he pleaded not guilty to Carly's murder. As of now, Spanavello is set to face a jury of his peers in August 2023, where he could get either the death penalty or life behind bars for the crime. Number 5. A deadly argument. On November 12, 2022, a fight between 2 roommates led to the tragic death of one of them in Cottondale, Alabama. Deputies from the Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Office responded to a residence on Fork Lane after receiving a tip suggesting that a man residing there had killed his roommate. During their investigation, the police made a disturbing discovery: the lifeless body of 61-year-old Barry Sartain in an outbuilding on the property. The roommate, identified as 24-year-old Daniel Scott Rayners, allegedly confessed to committing the murder and was subsequently taken into custody. Captain Jack Kennedy, the commander of the Violent Crimes Unit, provided details during a press conference, shedding light on the tragic events that unfolded between the suspect and the victim. According to Kennedy, the 2 individuals engaged in a physical altercation that ultimately resulted in homicide. Surprisingly, the suspect even assisted officers in the search for the victim prior to the discovery of the body. Kennedy revealed that the victim had been deceased for a couple of days before law enforcement located him. Although there were other individuals residing in the home, Kennedy clarified that they weren't involved in the case and weren't even present at the time of the killing. It's suspected that drugs and alcohol played a role in the tragic events leading up to the murder. While the investigation is still ongoing, Kennedy revealed that Sartain had suffered both beatings and stab wounds during the altercation. Although the exact number of stab wounds has not yet been determined, evidence suggests that the victim was stabbed multiple times. According to the authorities, Rayners had the intention to kill, a fact that was made evident by looking at the wounds sustained by the victim. Rayners is now in custody and awaits trial, and he faces the severe possibility of serving life in prison. Number 4. The Fateful Denial. On October 21st, 2022, a man from Alabama unleashed a brutal attack on his girlfriend after becoming frustrated when she refused to engage in sexual activity with him. 38-year-old Justin Fields now faces charges of murder and the abuse of a corpse following the gruesome events. The victim, 52-year-old Tammy Bailey, suffered a horrifying fate at the hands of Fields. Reports indicate that Fields used an 8-inch survival knife to viciously assault his live-in girlfriend. The violence escalated as he proceeded to dismember and behead her. The scene discovered by the law enforcement was beyond comprehension, with Blount County Sheriff Mark Moon describing it as one of the most disturbing and traumatic experiences his officers have ever encountered. Body cam footage captured the chilling confession of Fields at the crime scene. In the video, he admits to committing an unimaginable act and reveals that the evidence can be found inside the house. Fully aware of the consequences of his actions, Fields tells the officers that he expects to be arrested. According to officials, Fields and Bailey had gone out to celebrate his birthday on the night of the incident. After leaving their shared residence on Bailey Drive in Alabama, they traveled to a Springville area, approximately 30 minutes away. Upon returning home, Fields wanted to engage in sexual activity with Bailey, but she refused. Moon shared further details, stating that Fields consumed a drink of brandy and retreated to his bedroom, where he began playing his guitar. But his frustration grew, leading him to enter Bailey's room and try to convince her once again. When she rejected him once more, his anger boiled over, resulting in the fatal stabbing. Fields claimed to have experienced a blackout following the initial attack. Afterward, he returned to his room where he fell asleep. The following day, he awoke with the belief that he had been having a disturbing dream and proceeded to stab Bailey more than 100 times. Moon alleged that the victim likely died from the first blow, and when law enforcement returned to the scene the next day, her body had not been disturbed. Deputies arrived at the location at around 5:30 p.m. Fields, who had been waiting outside, admitted to law enforcement that he had done something terrible and directed them to the evidence inside the house. And as the area was secured, Fields cooperated with the deputy by allowing himself to be handcuffed. When additional officers arrived as backup, they entered the home and were confronted with the gruesome sight of Bailey's mutilated remains. Surprisingly, Fields had no previous criminal record, according to court records, and interviews conducted after the heinous crime revealed no history of mental health issues. Fields is currently detained in the Blount County Jail as he awaits trial. Number 3. Bad problem solving. On September 21st, 2018, a nurse reported her husband missing in Madison County after poisoning him with insulin and burying him in the garage of their home. The victim, 37-year-old James Jim Capello, was a well-respected private investigator in the local area. During the sentencing hearing, 32-year-old Marjorie Nikki Capello displayed no emotion as she received her punishment for the crime. The unsettling series of events began in September 2018, when Nikki reported her husband missing. Jimmy's co-workers grew concerned when he failed to show up for work, prompting them to visit their home. However, Nikki refused to allow them access inside. Concerned by the situation, Huntsville police arrived at the Capello residence and detected the smell of a decomposing body. Despite Nikki's initial resistance, officers eventually obtained a search warrant for the home's garage. There, they made a chilling discovery. Jimmy's body was wrapped in a tarp near a car. His feet were positioned on the floorboard, suggesting an attempt to place him inside the vehicle. The plot thickened when on September 22, 2018, Nikki contacted a friend and asked for help in moving and disposing of the body. She later retracted the request and advised the friend not to worry about it. During the search of the Capello residence, investigators stumbled upon a bottle of insulin. Inquiries revealed that the bottle of insulin had gone missing from the hospital where Nikki worked as a nurse. Some of her colleagues reportedly disclosed to detectives that Nikki had confessed to marital difficulties and had made disturbing comments indicating that the only resolution to her problems would be her husband's demise. Jim had suspected Nikki of drug use and intended to separate from her while seeking custody of their daughter. As a result, Jimmy's sister now has full custody of the young girl. Nikki was found guilty of intentional murder in May 2019 after a 4-day trial. The jury took just half an hour to reach their verdict, and she was sentenced to life in prison. She received her sentence from a Madison County Circuit Court judge in 2022. Number 2. Greed. In March 2017, a man hogtied and suffocated his own mother before burying her body in Baldwin County. 34-year-old Clark Rains asphyxiated his mother, 68-year-old Kay Rains. Not only did he kill his mother, but he also callously watched her die before burying her face down in a shallow grave. According to trial testimony, suspicions were raised when a neighbor reported the woman missing after she failed to return from a casino outing in Biloxi. Clark Rains further aroused suspicion when he began using his mother's credit cards. The police responded by placing a tracking device in Rains' car, leading them to a location on Alabama 225, a wooded area north of Bay Minette. There, they discovered the victim's body, still clothed in the outfit she had worn in Biloxi. Rains' defense attorney presented a lengthy list of his client's prior diagnoses of substance abuse and mental illnesses, which he argued his client had struggled with over the years. He expressed the belief that if Rains could gain control over these issues, he could potentially have a successful future. Deputy Public Defender Richard Foreman also sought to downplay Rains' criminal record, which included arrests dating back to 1999 and 4 previous felony convictions. However, the prosecution contested Rains' actions, particularly regarding the money. They argued that the inheritance Rains' mother received was rightfully hers to spend as she saw fit. It wasn't Rains' entitlement, as it had been left specifically to his mother by her late husband. After a lot of back and forth, Rains was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole. The ruling was made by Mobile County Circuit Judge J. York, following a prosecution request from a severe sentence. In addition to the life sentence, Judge York imposed the maximum prison term of 10 years for each of the 12 counts of unauthorized credit card use. Number 1. Hopelessness. On January 18, 2023, at around 11:15 p.m., a man and his 2 children were found dead in Tennessee. The Madison County Sheriff's Office received a call and dispatched deputies to conduct a welfare check on 43-year-old Jennifer Lepore at her residence on Shelmill Lane in Hazel Green. When they entered the home, the deputies discovered that Jennifer had passed away. The cause of her death, however, remains undetermined, as the autopsy results have not been made public yet. As the investigation unfolded, law enforcement officers became aware that Jennifer's husband, 46-year-old Jamie Lepore, and their 2 young sons, 9-year-old Jesse and 11-year-old Sean, had all disappeared. Acting on this information, authorities managed to identify a potential location for Jamie in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Recognizing the urgency, they reached out to the Murfreesboro Police Department for assistance in locating Jamie and the 2 young boys. Police officers reported that they went to a residence on Carson Lane, where Jamie was believed to be located. While engaging in a conversation with a tenant outside the residence, law enforcement officers suddenly heard gunshots emanating from inside the home. The officers swiftly entered the residence, only to encounter a tragic scene. Jamie, Jesse, and Sean were found dead inside. It's believed that Jamie took the lives of his family members before turning the weapon on himself. But the investigation into the case is ongoing. Number 12. One Chilly Night. In December 2021, a man wrapped his grandma in plastic bags before leaving her to die in a freezer while she was still alive. 29-year-old Robert Keith Tincher III was suspected of killing his grandmother, 82-year-old Doris Cumming. According to reports, Floyd County Police got a call on April 14th about a probable missing 82-year-old woman. Her family believed she traveled out of state but had not heard from her since the alleged move. Cummings's grandson, Robert, lived with her and should have moved with her towards the end of 2021. During their investigation, the police figured out that Cumming was somehow injured at home, but Robert didn't try getting any medical help for her. According to Floyd County Police, the grandmother was in bad shape but still conscious when Robert dragged her by her hands and feet around the house and placed her in a large freezer, breaking most of her fragile bones in the process. He then put her in the cooler to hide her death, even though she hadn't died quite yet. The killer told police officers that his grandmother's back broke as he pushed her into the freezer, and then he allegedly moved the cooler to a storage facility where it was discovered by police the night of April 14th, 2022. According to past records, this was not Tincher's first run-in with the law. In July 2018, He allegedly asked someone through Facebook message if they could throw his wife 6 feet deep. He then failed to show up for his court date, and a warrant was put out for his arrest. Robert was charged with felony malice murder, hiding the death of another person, aggravated battery, and felony murder charges, along with failure to appear for warrants for 2 felony terroristic dangers, including the claimed attempted attack on his former wife. He was placed in the Floyd County Jail to carry out his life sentence in prison. Number 11. Die for Love. On August 11th, 2022, around 1 p.m., a young mother from Georgia was allegedly attacked and brutally killed by 2 women over a possible love triangle. 30-year-old Ashley Bocanegra, mother of 1, died after she was viciously assaulted. According to Gwinnett County Police, she was lured into an apartment near the 2900 block of Buford Drive by 2 suspected women, 27-year-old Antonetta Stevens and 17-year-old Janine Gonzalez. In reality, Ashley was ambushed. Gonzalez's brother was reportedly romantically involved with both Stevens and Ashley at the same time. Their relationship was the alleged motive behind the attack, and the suspects not only attacked the victim but also stole her cell phone. Both of these items were discovered at Stevenson's apartment after the incident, where the attack happened. After getting questioned, they were both taken into custody. The woman suffered severe injuries from her attackers, after which she died in the hospital. According to her sister, Jessica Roche, the woman fractured her liver and ribs, which left her unable to breathe out through her mouth. They had to force a tube down her throat for her to breathe during her last moments. There was a surgery scheduled to be performed on her, but she didn't survive long enough for that to take place. That's not all. Gonzalez's brother, who was the original motive behind the fight, was also inside the apartment at the time of the attack, and he too received several injuries scattered all over his back and shoulders. Ashley left behind her 7-year-old son. The suspects were charged with her murder, as well as aggravated battery and robbery. Both Stevens and Gonzalez were sentenced to life in prison, without a chance at parole or bond. Number 10. The Death of Honor. On February 6, 2023, a teenage girl was found dumped in a secluded forested area, and a former Doraville police officer has since been arrested on suspicion of moving the girl's body into the woods after she died. On July 26, 22-year-old Miles Bryant was taken into custody and charged with hiding the death of another person and a false report of a crime. Susanna Morales, a 16-year-old girl who went to Meadow Creek High School, disappeared one day, and her naked body was dumped in the woods. According to reports, Bryant, who used to work with the Doraville Police Department not too long before the incident, moved the corpse. He also falsely reported that his gun was stolen from him after someone broke into his car. Morales disappeared on July 26th after leaving her home in Norcross, Georgia. Her last known location was traced to Oak Lodge Trace by using her cell phone data, but she never made it home. She was missing for months after her decomposing remains were eventually discovered. It was a passerby who saw her body in the woods off Highway 316. Gwinnett County Police did not think Morales and Bryant had any prior relationship before the incident. But since Bryant lived in Norcross, near Morales' home, there is room for suspicion. At a court hearing, the suspect was appointed an attorney and told that he was denied bond. And although not yet formally charged, investigators believe Bryant raped and murdered the victim. As of now, he is being held in custody at the Gwinnett Detention Center. Number 9. Attachment issues. In April 2022, a man was killed by her fiancé, and his body was hidden for months inside their own house. In June 2022, Hall County Sheriff's deputies were called to a house on Candler Road by 82-year-old Leroy Franklin Kramer Jr.'s stepdaughter, who said she had not seen or heard from him for a couple months. After entering the house, deputies made a gruesome discovery: Kramer's body. 45-year-old Tabitha Wood, Kramer's fiancée, told authorities that he passed away in April 2022, and she had been living with his body ever since. According to Hall County Sheriff spokeswoman B.J. Williams, Kramer's death was a homicide caused by blunt force trauma, especially to his neck and chest regions. The Gainesville Times added that Kramer's hyoid bone and thyroid cartilage were severely damaged. During the trial, Assistant District Attorney Harold Buckler presented Cash App transactions from 2022 and claimed Wood was draining Kramer's account. Initially, Wood was arrested for murder on June 9th of the same year, but she was released on July 24th. On March 17, 2023, after 90 minutes of deliberation, according to a Hall County jury, Wood was officially charged with 2 counts of felony murder, malice murder, assault, concealing of death, exploitation of an elderly person, and financial transaction theft. Her sentence has not yet been announced. Number 8. Anniversary gone wrong. On April 15, 2023, a Georgia mother of 4 was discovered dead in her apartment by police who visited for a welfare check. 32-year-old Casey Allen had been brutally stabbed by her husband, 31-year-old Christopher Dean Snow, according to the Gainesville Police Department. The couple had recently celebrated their wedding anniversary and welcomed their first child together a few months before. Allen worked for Carter's Oshkosh on their management team and had 3 older kids with her first husband. She was described as someone who loved being a mom over everything else in the world. Allen and Snow left their young infant with Snow's aunt on the day of the murder to celebrate their anniversary. They went to Build-A-Bear to build a plush owl with both of their voices, saw a comedy club show, and even ate dinner before heading home. It seemed like a great night until they got home. Snow went to his aunt the next day and told her that he had a huge fight with Allen the night before and couldn't find her. But when police discovered her body, she had multiple stab wounds and was severely beaten, with damage on her face and torso. Police managed to locate Snow in Gwinnett County after he was in a car accident on Interstate 85. The motive behind his actions remains unclear, leaving Allen's family and loved ones with countless unanswered questions. It turns out, Snow tried to kill himself and purposefully crashed into a freeway median. There had been warning signs before the wedding that Snow was physically abusive towards Allen, which she simply dismissed as a one-time occurrence. Allen sadly left behind 4 children after her death, with the youngest being only a couple months old and the oldest being 7. Snow was taken into custody at Hall County Jail for felony murder, aggravated battery, and aggressive assault of a spouse, and a probation violation. He received a life sentence. Number 7. Anger issues. On October 10th, 2021, a man frequently assaulted his pregnant partner. He reportedly kicked her in the stomach multiple times. According to a news statement from Cherokee County District Attorney Shannon Wallace, 31-year-old Joseph Newton's girlfriend tried to leave their home after a fight on December 21st, 2020. He took his girlfriend's car keys and cell phone, causing her to flee on foot. Newton, according to Wallace, chased after his girlfriend through the neighborhood, yanked her by the hair, tore off her clothes, and dragged her across a yard and driveway. The victim had swelling, scrapes, and bruises all over her. Luckily, she managed to get away and call 911 the next day. Newton was later arrested, freed on bond, and told not to speak to his girlfriend. But not long after the incident, the two rekindled their connection. Their relationship with each other was rocky, to say the least. Almost a year after the first incident, authorities heard another allegation of domestic abuse between Newton and his girlfriend after she ended their relationship for the sake of their unborn baby. That's when Newton beat up his lover, kicked her, spat on her, choked her, hit her with things in their apartment, smashed her head hard against the floor, and stomped on her abdomen with his foot. As she was lying on the ground lifeless, the suspect poured sugar, salt, and coffee grounds all over her wounds. But when he fell asleep, she managed to get out and call 911. During the call, she went into detail about what had happened, and for the very first time, begged for help. Even though Newton beat her for hours, she had enough strength and guts to escape, guaranteeing that she and her baby would live. Woodstock police found Newton hiding inside the attic and detained him. On March 31st, 2022, after a 2-day trial, Newton was sentenced to life and 10 years in state prison. Do you think the police could have prevented the woman's suffering? Tell us in the comments below and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 6. Trouble at Home. On April 24th, 2023, a man was taken into custody on suspicion of killing his dad and injuring his mother in Forsyth County, Georgia. The Forsyth County Sheriff's Office responded to a stabbing at a home on Block 2800 of Cambria Court, where they found 65-year-old John Boswell dead. Another victim, an unidentified woman, had also been stabbed and was hospitalized. She was in a serious condition. The authorities later identified the suspect as 36-year-old Catlin Boswell, the son of the 2 victims. Boswell had already escaped the scene by the time deputies arrived. After a manhunt was launched, he was found and arrested in Whitfield County with the help of local police officers. The motive behind the attack remains unknown, and the investigation is ongoing. As of now, Boswell has been charged with aggravated assault and murder and is in custody with no bond. He's being held at the Forsyth County Jail. Number 5. Only Way Out. On December 7th, 2022, around 5:30 p.m., a man killed his ex-wife's divorce attorney and set the man's office building on fire. On a Wednesday in Gwinnett County, authorities responded to a growing fire on Stone Mountain Street in Lawrenceville. It was eventually put out, and officials found the dead corpse of the attorney, Douglas Lewis, inside the building. The incident was quickly turned into a homicide investigation. Lewis represented Alan Tayer's ex-wife in their divorce case, according to court documents. Tayer was also seen leaving the law office with burn injuries. According to reports, he allegedly set fire to the office sometime between 5 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. with a can of gasoline. He then left the area after sparking the flames. His actions caused a massive fire that not only destroyed the office but also took the life of a respected lawyer. They found a revolver on Tayer after arresting him, but Lewis's body was so badly charred that the authorities were unable to figure out the actual cause of death. Lewis's co-workers were devastated by the loss and described him as a family man, a good guy, and someone who was friendly to everyone. They accepted that this scenario was something they all feared, stating that it is an issue every lawyer frets over in the back of their mind. Police have not provided a motive, but court records show that a divorce hearing was scheduled for the Wednesday after the murder. Tayer was arrested and charged with murder and arson. He is now being held in the Gwinnett County Jail without bond until further legal proceedings. Number 4. A grave mistake. On July 30th, 2022, not too long after midnight, a woman was spotted dead in her parked car after a college professor killed her with a single gunshot. 18-year-old Anna Jones was shot dead by a professor at the Georgia University, where she was planning to attend in the fall. 47-year-old Richard Sigmund has since been arrested and charged with murder, possession of a firearm, and aggravated assault. Late in the night, a man alerted security, telling them that Sigmund threatened to shoot him after an argument. When security approached the professor, they realized that he had a weapon and told him to leave. Sigmund then headed towards a parking deck and started shooting into the parked vehicle where Jones was sitting. She was immediately rushed to a hospital and was pronounced dead not long after her arrival. The University of West Georgia quickly fired Sigmund after the charges were brought against him. He appeared in court just 2 days later and was denied bond. He remains in custody to this day at the Carroll County Jail, where he was sentenced to life. Number 3. A massive coincidence. On March 6, 2023, a man's dead body was located after an accidental overdose. 42-year-old Nathan Millard vanished off the face of the earth on February 23rd, after which he was spotted dead almost 2 weeks later. As it turns out, he had gone out one night to party with prostitutes and drug dealers. Millard, who was a well-off businessman from Georgia, was regarded as a girl dad and family man. He was discovered wrapped in plastic and bundled in a carpet off a Baton Rouge highway after collapsing from an overdose. According to NBC News, the coroners found no sign of internal or external injuries on the man's body. Their toxicology test results indicated the presence of fentanyl, cocaine, and ethanol in his system, which led to the assumption that he had fatally overdosed. Medical investigators decide that Millard's death was unintentional and was the result of the combined effects of the narcotics in his system. Millard met with 2 accused prostitutes before his death while searching for anything that could make him feel better. 26-year-old Tiffany Ann Goodry was arrested for unlawful disposal of remains after a warrant was issued for 3 people who were possibly connected to his death. Goodry was wanted for prostitution and not asking for help after Millard's death, along with 33-year-old Tabitha Barner. 45-year-old Derek Perkins was also arrested in connection to Millard's death on March 14th for accusations of property damage, 3 counts of device fraud, and unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Perkins was suspected of having used the victim's debit card and driving a stolen 2004 Toyota Camry near the crime scene. The alleged drug dealer later told police that Millard was intimate with 4 prostitutes the night before his disappearance. The dealer claimed that he picked up Millard and 2 women and drove them around while they smoked marijuana. While he was having sex, he died, and despite desperate CPR efforts, the man wasn't brought back to life. The suspects then decided to take matters into their own hands and got rid of the victim's body, but reports found them not guilty of his murder. It's not clear what the end result of this case was. It's likely that the prostitutes didn't report Millard's death out of fear that they'd be found responsible. Number 2. Road to Heaven. On May 2nd, 2013, a woman tried to kill her young daughter using a pair of sharp scissors. She then tried to kill herself so that both of them could get into heaven together. 28-year-old Marina Middlebrooks swerved and smashed straight into a tree while she was heading down Ray Owens Road in Columbia County. When an eyewitness saw the accident, he quickly called 911. The medics came and found Middlebrooks naked with only a sweatshirt on, and to top it off, she was covered in blood. She allegedly claimed that she had no idea what happened to her, but she wasn't exactly alone. Her daughter, 2-year-old Sky Allen, was found naked on the floor of the car while officials were having a conversation with Marina. The police officers realized that the little girl was covered in dried blood with a gaping stab wound on her neck. A pair of bloodied scissors were located in the front of the car by investigators. After a thorough investigation, the medical examiner decided that Sky was stabbed several times. One of the wounds cut open a jugular vein, leading to fatal blood loss. A sharp, open pair of scissors was determined to be what caused the injuries. Middlebrooks was wounded in the neck, face, wrist, arms, chest, and knee. The mother told one of the forensic psychiatrists who examined her that she stripped herself and Sky naked so they could kill themselves because clothes, even jewelry, would prevent their spirits from leaving this world. They needed to do this so they could get into heaven. Middlebrooks had severe schizophrenia, according to the psychologist, and didn't have the mental capacity to know right from wrong. In other reports, after she was arrested, her cellmate testified that the woman told her she killed Sky because of her boyfriend. In February 2016, she was finally sentenced to life in prison on the charge of murder. Middlebrooks was given an additional 20 years on the charge of cruelty to children. Number 1. Fast food fright. On April 5th, 2023, around 7 a.m., 2 people were killed in a murder-suicide at a Chick-fil-A drive-thru in Georgia. According to police officers, 56-year-old Anthony Green shot 39-year-old Casey Lachey Davis in the drive-thru pickup lane, forcing her car to roll down a nearby embankment. The suspect then turned the weapon towards himself. Green and Davis, both Rome residents, are thought to have had a domestic connection in the past. Davis's car made it look like the incident was simply an accident, so initially, police responded to the crime scene as if it was nothing more than a vehicular crash. But when the cops came to the fast food restaurant, they found a bloody scene out of a nightmare. According to Assistant Police Chief Debbie Burnett, one of the individuals was discovered inside a large silver SUV on Shorter Avenue, while the other was located outside a car near the drive-thru. According to the preliminary inquiry, Green shot Davis before himself in an evident murder-suicide. The county coroner says that Davis was shot 3 times with a handgun. The crime is not thought to be related to the Chick-fil-A restaurant at all, according to the police chief. Both the killer and the victim were declared dead on the spot.
Number 8. Douglas Ramsey. In late 2022, the chief operating officer of the worldwide substitute meat company Beyond Meat was accused of biting a man's nose after a college football game in Fayetteville, Arkansas. According to reports from local news stations KNWA and KFTA-TV, the incident happened on September 17th in the parking garage near Razorback Stadium. The suspect, 53-year-old businessman Douglas Ramsey, allegedly committed the crime after Arkansas beat Missouri State. Officers were called to Gate 15 a little after 10 p.m. that night after receiving multiple reports of a disturbance. When they got to the scene, the police found 2 men with their faces covered in blood, one of which was Ramsey. Apparently, a driver had cut him off while leaving the football game, which drove him into a blind, hateful rage. He reportedly got out of his car and punched through the other driver's back windshield. Then, when the victim got out of his vehicle to confront him, Ramsey hit him in the face and forcefully bit the tip of his nose, ripping some flesh off with his teeth. Ramsey also allegedly threatened to kill the man, but witnesses were able to separate them before things got any worse. Ramsey was immediately arrested and was booked into Washington jail. He was charged with third-degree battery as well as terroristic threatening. The next day, he posted his $11,085 bond and was released. After catching wind of Ramsey's violent outburst, Beyond Meat executives decided to fire him from the company. He just didn't fit their standard of an employee, let alone a leader. Number 7. Willie May Harris. An Arkansas woman who was abused throughout her entire marriage was wrongfully convicted of shooting her husband over 3 decades ago, and finally in 2020, her life sentence was taken back. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson decided that Willie May Harris should be eligible for parole. He cited the physical abuse that the woman suffered at the hands of her husband, Clyde. Back in 1985, Harris shot him in self-defense, and a jury decided that she deserved to be locked up for the rest of her life. But here's where the legal system really failed Harris. No evidence of the abuse she suffered was presented during her trial. Oh, and she's also legally blind if that helps at all. She would have had no idea where she was shooting, just the general direction. All she knew was that her life was in danger and she had to protect herself. According to an affidavit from the woman's aunt, Clyde once broke her hand during a fight using a universal joint from a car. The woman's attorney, Lee Eaton, told news station WVLT that he cried for at least an hour after hearing the judge's decision to release Harris. He stated, "She's missed generations of her family." On June 5, 2020, Willie finally walked out of Wrightsville Women's Facility as a free woman. She'd wrongfully served 35 years for a crime committed in self-defense. The 72-year-old was finally able to embrace her 2 adult daughters, Malone and Sylvia, who were only 5 and 14 years old when she was unjustly convicted of first-degree murder. Number 6. John R. Tyson. The chief financial officer for Tyson Foods Company was reportedly arrested in November 2022 for accidentally falling asleep in someone else's home. According to Washington County jail records, John R. Tyson was taken into custody on November 6 and charged with criminal trespassing and public intoxication. Based on reports from local news stations KNWA and KFTA-TV, a woman came home at around 2 a.m. and discovered Tyson sleeping in her bed. She immediately called the cops to report the break-in and told officers she believed he got into her home through the front door. She'd accidentally left it unlocked earlier that day. Based on reports from KNWA, Tyson's clothes were left in a pile at the foot of the bed, and the responding officers were able to identify him after locating his driver's license. When they tried speaking with him, he supposedly started to fall back asleep and couldn't respond clearly. Not surprisingly, he reeked of alcohol and was intoxicated beyond doubt. Tyson's sweater and boots were found in the home's living room, and his pants were thrown in the bedroom. He was apparently only wearing underwear at the time of his arrest. He was booked into the Washington County Detention Center, but was released that same night. After the incident, Tyson Foods launched an investigation into the misconduct of their CFO. Tyson reportedly apologized to the company's investors for his actions and told them, "I'm committed to making sure this never happens again." Number 5. Bridget J. Thomas. In December 2022, a woman from El Dorado, Arkansas fatally stabbed her boyfriend 2 weeks after she was told to have no contact with him. The no-contact order was granted to 43-year-old George E. Moore Jr. after his girlfriend, 52-year-old Bridget J. Thomas, allegedly cut him in a past incident. The couple was having an argument, and Bridget decided she'd had enough, so she stabbed Moore in the arm with a knife. After this, she was told to stay away from her lover, but she just couldn't leave him alone. 2 weeks later, El Dorado police were called to a home on East Faulkner Street around midnight, where they found Moore lying on his living room floor, motionless and unresponsive. According to police reports, he had sustained a stab wound to the chest, right next to his heart. When authorities arrived, Bridget was hovering on top of him. A butcher knife was on the ground next to her, and she was screaming and crying. El Dorado Police Captain Scott Harwell called an ambulance in order to try and save Moore's life, but nothing could be done. It was already too late. He ended up dying from his injuries. During Bridget's first appearance in district court, she was issued a $1 million bond. She was later booked into Union County Jail, where she'll wait until her next court date. Would you rather find out that your favorite teacher was a serial killer, or find out that your new doctor has mysteriously had his last 10 patients die? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. Number 4. Maurice Anthony Richardson. In 2022, a man from Fort Smith, Arkansas supposedly killed his ex-girlfriend before ruthlessly wrapping her in a comforter and leaving her body in an abandoned driveway. Wrapped in a flower and hummingbird print blanket, the remains of 53-year-old Tanya Tram Tran were discovered by police 11 days after she'd been killed. The victim apparently suffered from multiple injuries when she was left in the secluded driveway. Tran had just moved to Fort Smith that year from Garden Grove, California, and she met 60-year-old Maurice Anthony Richardson a little after getting to the area. She even moved in with him after being together less than 3 months. When investigators searched the home Tran shared with Richardson, they realized that the man had just moved in with a new woman that had a striking resemblance to Tran. When questioned by police, the woman admitted to only having known Richardson for 3 days. She said that even though they were a new couple, the two of them planned to get married quickly. At the home, police found new runners matching the flower and hummingbird pattern on the blanket found wrapped around Tran. There was also a brand new mattress in the home, suggesting that perhaps the victim had been killed on the old one. And so, the drop cloth material and blanket used to cover Tran's body were sent to the state's crime lab in order to search for fingerprints and any possible DNA evidence. The woman's vehicle was also discovered at the property, and blood was found inside in a pattern indicating a body had been moved out of it. The investigation by the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney, the Arkansas State Police, and other law enforcement agencies is still ongoing. But Richardson has been formally charged with first-degree murder. His bond is currently set at $500,000 cash. Number 3. Dale Leather. In May 2022, a 64-year-old man fatally shot a couple in Flippin, Arkansas after an argument over a truck. According to local news station KY3-TV, Dale Leather planned to buy a vehicle from Kimberly and Jeffrey Watson. Then, just a few days later, the couple was found dead in their own home, and their 2013 Ford pickup was missing. When authorities questioned people living nearby in the neighborhood, they were told of Leather's plans to purchase the vehicle. And so, officers tried to find the man by going to his house, which was reportedly near the crime scene, but he wasn't home. Investigators were able to get Leather's phone number from a relative, and they tracked his mobile device to the Houston, Texas area. Based on reports from news station KTLO, the missing truck was found in Houston. Several days after the bodies of Kimberly and Jeffrey Watson were found, Leather was spotted in the suburb of Sugarland. He told officers that he'd wanted to buy the truck from the Watsons, but they declined his offer. In response, STI Leather pulled out a pistol and shot Jeffrey. Then he went around the house and shot Kimberly on the back deck. He allegedly admitted to finishing her off with a knife he had on hand. Inside the truck, authorities found the murder weapon, so they arrested STI Leather. He was charged with theft of property, aggravated residential burglary, and 2 counts of capital murder on May 24, 2022. He's currently being held without bond in Marion County Jail while his case plays out in the court system. Number 2. Marcus Pulum. In September 2022, an Arkansas man was reportedly caught with 10 pounds of marijuana by officers from the West Memphis Police Department. 37-year-old Marcus Pulum was arrested by agents from the 2nd Judicial Drug Task Force. Pulum was pulled over because a strong marijuana smell was wafting out from inside his car. He was stopped near Hino Boulevard at College Boulevard in Memphis, where he seemed to just be passing through selling his weed. 3 pounds of marijuana as well as a loaded firearm were found in Pulum's car. After identifying him, the Drug Task Force went to his home in Marion, Arkansas, located on Bayou Vista Drive. They executed a search warrant and continued searching for incriminating evidence inside. Another 7 pounds of weed were uncovered, and a total of $31,364 in cash were also seized from the suspect. After his arrest, Pulum was charged with simultaneous possession of drugs and firearms and possession of a Schedule 6 controlled substance with the purpose to deliver. Number 1. Rocky Dodson. A 52-year-old high school principal from Omaha, Arkansas was accused of killing his wife back in March 2022. On March 6th, deputies for Boone County were called to the home of Rocky and Amanda Christine Dodson. When they got there, they discovered Amanda's dead body on the living room floor. The probable cause affidavit stated that her body displayed severe bruising on the arms, legs, and upper torso areas. Rocky was responsible for calling 911, initially reporting that he'd found his dead wife when he woke up that morning at 9 a.m. When he was questioned, Rocky claimed that Amanda had gotten home on March 6th early in the morning. He said that he let her into the house, but then put her on the couch in the living room before going to bed in the couple's shared room. According to the probable cause affidavit, Rocky painted a rather unflattering picture of his deceased wife, telling investigators that Amanda was a chronic alcoholic, among other negative descriptors. Even though he didn't confess outright, he did admit that he was the only one at home with his wife when the murder happened. The investigators concluded that Rocky was the only person there who had the ability to inflict the blow on Amanda that caused her death. The victim's body was transported to the Arkansas State Medical Examiner's office in Little Rock so that an autopsy could be carried out. In the report, it said there was external bruising and hemorrhaging at the front of Amanda's neck, as well as severe swelling on her neck muscles. Her tracheal cartilage, the cartilage surrounding the tube connecting a person's voice box with their lungs, was also broken, fractured, and crushed in multiple places. The doctor who performed the autopsy stated that in her opinion, the blow to the neck would have immediately caused the victim severe stress. Apparently, the injuries would have led Amanda to have significant breathing issues thanks to a reduction in oxygen intake. The doctor also stated that anyone present at the scene would have been aware that the victim was in distress. But Rocky didn't mention noticing his wife in any danger, suggesting he was purposefully leaving out details. The case is ongoing, but Rocky entered a not guilty plea for the murder charge against him. His bail is currently set at $250,000, and his trial will take place on January 30th, 2023. Which of these cases shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Bad Badger.